Always a pleasure, Doug, and a lot to get to, a lot to go over. You know, I do want to get right into Trump, but before I do that, what is your reaction to the Stephen Horsford situation? I'm actually calling out some of these Democrats that are not, I guess not being as forthcoming, saying it's a private matter. I think it's an embarrassment. I think Stephen Horsford is an embarrassment, and I don't care whether he's a Democrat or Republican. What do you say to this?
I see your point. I personally think that he should pull a Jimmy Swaggart and go before the cameras and start crying and say, I have sinned, and I'll leave it up to the voters. But the one thing I wanted to mention, I was listening to you and JD in the first half hour. As far as the timing of when something happened, if it's going to be a litmus test on character, it shouldn't matter when it happens. I mean, if you can't trust someone to be true to their significant other when they're out of office, chances are you can't when they're in either.
Couldn't agree with you more, Doug, and that's my point, and that's why JD and I disagree. But I want to get to the Donald Trump stuff,
which we do sometimes.
Yeah, I want to get I want to get right into Petty Trump, as I like to call him, because he's been on the attack. Let's start with Nancy Pelosi, Doug. Now, as you know, Nancy Pelosi called him morbidly obese and shouldn't be taking this hydroxychloroquine. And Trump, whether he's morbidly obese or he's just obese, I think Nancy Pelosi was a cheap shot because, as you know, Trump has thrown a lot of cheap shots at her and her looks, so on and so forth. So after she made those comments about him, this is what Donald Trump had to say. Have a listen to this.
Oh, I don't respond to her. I think she's a waste of time. These people are sick. Pelosi is a sick woman. She's got a lot of problems, a lot of mental problems. We're dealing with people that have to get their act together for the good of the country.
All right, so Nancy Pelosi responded to that on MSNBC last night. Have a listen to this.
I didn't know that he would be so sensitive. He's always talking about other people's avoirdupois, their weight, their pounds. But I don't even want to spend any more time on his distraction because, as you see in the last couple of days, so much of the time has been spent on what he said. Rather than that, I think he should recognize that his words weigh a ton. Instead of putting people to put Lysol into their lungs or taking a medication that has not been approved except under certain circumstances, he should be saying what your previous guest mentioned, things that would help people.
Lysol into your lungs. I kind of like that one. Doug, what's your response to that?
Well, I mean, her response is correct. And when you get down to the bottom line, his weight is a distraction. She was only using the same words his physician used. It might have been a cheap shot, but then what do you do with the guy who is a cheap shot? I mean, sometimes, it doesn't matter how composed a human being you are. There comes a point when it's like, you know what? I'm going to hit this guy with the only kind of weapon he understands, a cheap shot.
No, you're right. And obviously, if anybody comes at him and makes fun of his looks or his fake tan or the fact that he is a little overweight, he goes crazy because he is one of the most
keyword a little overweight,
insecure.
30.4 BMI according to
but that's not the point.
243 pounds.
I understand.
Morbidly obese is 100 pounds overweight or 40 or more BMI.
So we're talking about pounds, but
grossly inaccurate. She also said that since he's overweight, he should not be taking hydroxychloroquine. And last time I checked, she is not a doctor. Neither is Donald Trump. Neither am I. Neither is Brian. Neither is Doug. Mm-hmm. But when Donald Trump mentions the drug, he mentions the fact that I'm not. He says I'm not a doctor.
Whatever the voices in his head are telling him.
If Donald Trump's not a doctor, then maybe Donald Trump shouldn't be talking about taking a hydroxy. That's my personal opinion on that.
What do you mean talking about it?
Well, he's been promoting it for months now, and it's a joke because there's not enough information.
He actually says he's not a doctor. And Brian, I mean,
why is he talking about it?
Let's be honest. The reason that it was promoted was because it's been around for 70 years. Used
not
for various.
Not for this specific.
Well, nothing is
has
nothing
to do with
for this, Brian. It's a brand new novel virus.
Has nothing to do with it.
There's going to be nothing that's going to be.
Guys, here's the thing.
There'll be evidence that it works for this particular virus.
It's so obvious we overlook it. The obvious is in the statement. When Donald Trump says it's been around for 60 years, and then the next day he'll say it's been around for 70 years, people have used it for lupus, people have used it for malaria. That's the point. for malaria and lupus,
and
not
rheumatoid
on
arthritis.
People that have COVID-19. And the tests that have been done on people that have COVID-19 shows that it can do more harm than good.
That's not true. In some situations, if you have a heart issue, it can speed up your heart. But there's been tests done all over the world and all over the country. Some are positive, some are negative. And that's the thing, is we don't know what's political, what's real, and what's not.
But JD, in one breath you say he's not a doctor, and then
he isn't
in the
a
next
doctor.
breath you defend him dispensing medical information.
He claimed that he was not a doctor. Nancy Pelosi recommended
but
that.
his face is not that bright.
The issue is Nancy Pelosi recommended that Donald Trump not take this medication, but she didn't announce that she wasn't a doctor beforehand. Why is it okay for her to do that, but Donald Trump can't even talk about a drug that he thinks that he thought would work based on what his own doctors told him?
Go ahead, Doug.
It was okay for what Pelosi said was a repetition of what the doctor said. What Trump said is not. And like I said, a lot of his supporters are not the sharpest crayons in the box.
Wait, you don't think
the
that
poison line was overwhelmed with calls? Gee, can I drink bleach?
He's right about that. There are some people out there throughout the country.
What, in Kansas?
That take every.
Yes. So allegedly, there were a couple of people that called.
Not allegedly. They actually had a press conference about it.
Okay, Brian. Again, we don't know if that's real or not.
No, we do know it's
we
real.
We actually don't.
We actually do.
We actually
do. There was a excuse me. There was
Brian.
a press conference.
Anyways,
no.
Doug,
What are you talking about? We absolutely.
Hey, Brian. I'm talking to Doug today.
Okay, but you're not being factually accurate.
We debated the last half hour.
All right, you said something that's not true. It actually did happen. It's not allegedly. They actually did a press conference. Did you not see it? The doctor actually said this guy tried to drink this crap, and he almost killed himself. He also said that these types of poison situations were up 40% since Donald Trump talked about it. So don't tell me that it's not true. Allegedly, it is true.
Okay, but Doug, what do you mean go? What do you mean go?
Go.
Oh, so now I have the authority to go because you told me that I can talk.
Now that I've proved that you just said something that's not factually
you didn't
accurate.
Prove anything,
yes,
Brian.
I did.
No, you did not.
Would you like to make a wager?
And you rarely do prove anything.
Oh, really?
Factually accurate is not your game.
So that didn't happen.
Factually accurate is my game. Emotions are your game.
Let me know when you're. JD's being
said,
Trump defensive again today.
Emotions and oversensitivity are Brian Shapiro's game. That being said, Doug, you're telling me that Donald Trump was talking about hydroxychloroquine without any information from the doctors? He was just making that up off the top of his head?
Well, yeah, when he sits there and stands before the cameras and said, it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to hurt you, that is a flat-out lie. And his own VA told him that. And so what's his response? Oh, they're Trump haters. It's a phony report. I mean, that is just unconscionable. And here's the biggest problem. Again, a lot of his base are not the sharpest crayons in the box. You've probably seen the video that went viral of the reporter on Long Island that went to cover a protest, and once they found out he was the media, they started jumping all over him, calling him
I did see that, yeah, I saw that.
And the one guy wouldn't stay 6 feet away from him. When the reporter said, stay 6 feet away from me, the guy said, oh, I'll be fine. I take hydroxychloroquine. That's
pretty idiotic. It's pretty idiotic.
Okay, well, Donald Trump is taking it as a prophylactic, the same way that this guy was talking about, due to the advice or based on the recommendation of his doctors. And I would imagine that his doctors are pretty good.
That's
Doug.
also not true. That's a lie. Hold on a second. You just said something that's not true.
How is it not true?
Because Donald Trump.
True?
Let me explain. Donald Trump did a press conference 2 days ago.
Yes.
And in that press conference, he said the doctors did not recommend it to him. He specifically said that he's the one that brought it up. And the doctor said, okay, well, if you want to take it. It wasn't that the doctors brought it up and said, hey, Mr. President, you should take that. Donald Trump admitted that. Again, what you're saying is not factually accurate.
If that's the case, then Donald Trump is going to get hydroxychloroquine, and he's going to die because he's overweight and he has a heart problem.
Say that.
And Doug can be happy, and Brian can be happy.
Well, that's a stupid thing for you to say.
And Nancy Pelosi, and Jake Tapper, and Anderson Cooper.
All right, well, that's
they can all be extremely happy. They can have a giant celebration. It can be.
Let me know when you're done making your stupid comments.
It could be a Zoom call party. It could be a beautiful Zoom call party fiesta.
Let me know when you're done with your stupid rant.
No, that's not
a stupid thing to say. Then I want Donald Trump to die.
He has taken.
Don't be an idiot.
He has taken it as a prophylactic, Brian.
And what is the proof that it works as a prophylactic? Do you have any evidence?
Well, yes.
What's the evidence? What is it?
Doctors are saying that it works as a prophylactic.
What doctors?
A lot of doctors out there.
Who?
I don't know the actual names, but I know a lot of doctors out there saying that.
Well, you and Donald Trump have something in common because Donald Trump.
So you think
that
Donald Trump is just taking this?
No, here's what I think.
On his own volition?
First
you
of
think
all,
the President of the United States is taking a drug that he has not been recommended to take
Would
this
you
drug?
like me to respond? You asked me a question.
That is one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life.
I'll tell you what's
crazy. A guy that's overweight, a guy that's 243 pounds, who has a heart problem, is taking a drug without doctor's permission that could kill him?
Are you done with your rant?
The President of the United States is taking a drug that can kill him, and you don't think that doctors have told him to take that drug, Brian? How could you possibly have that thought process?
Go ahead, Doug.
Taking it.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Hold on a second, JD.
There's no proof he's taking it.
JD,
Okay, fine.
give me 20 seconds to your 3 minutes, please. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, first of all, when Donald Trump talked about possibly injecting yourself with disinfectants, that's what I call idiotic. When Donald Trump goes up there in a press conference, excuse me. When Donald Trump talks about taking hydroxy, when there is absolutely not enough evidence to support the fact that it works to prevent the coronavirus, that's what I call crazy and idiotic, Now, if you want to go on your high horse and say, me and Doug want Donald Trump to die, that is an idiotic and an ignorant statement for you to make. I have never said that before in my life, and I never will. So you are 100% wrong in making that
What I'm saying is, if he is taking this...
That's what you said.
If he's taking this drug, and he's high risk because he's overweight...
That's not the point now.
And he's not healthy, and he has a heart issue, then he's going to die. As the great Neil Cavuto said, you will die if you take this drug.
Okay, I don't know why you're bringing that up.
Well, because I'm saying Donald Trump, the President of the United States, would never be taking this drug unless he had the advice of doctors to do it. He would never do it by himself, Brian. If you actually think that, you are completely insane. But that's what you're saying. And Doug, why do I think that he's actually taking the drug? Because his valet came down with the virus. Mike Pence's staffer came down with the virus. Mike Pence hasn't been seen in a couple of weeks. I think that Donald Trump has been around with a couple of people that in the White House that have the virus, and so he's taking this to prevent himself from getting it. He's also 73 years old, so I'm 72 years old, so he is in that high risk group. And yes, he is obese. He is not morbidly obese, but he is obese. So yes, I do believe that he's taking that drug, Doug. And it's not like he has a major financial interest in the drug, anyways.
Go ahead, Doug.
Well, you can believe that he's taking it, and I'm not saying he isn't. And personally, I don't care whether he is or not. In fact, I kind of hope he is. The point is, he says things that he shouldn't say. And as far as, to get back to the question of whether or not he is taking it, whenever Donald Trump says something, if you've been paying attention for the past 3 years, your default position and reaction should be that he's lying. If you look at the doctor's note that he had the guy write that took 3 hours before they released it, he never confirmed that Trump was taking it. He said they had a conversation and they decided that the risks were less than the potential benefit. That's all he said. He didn't
not
say
only that, Doug,
it or that he prescribed it.
Not only that,
I'm not even sure he's taking it. But again, I don't care whether he is or not. What I care about is that people listen to what he says and they don't hear, I'm not a doctor. Because cult members don't care. What their leader says is gospel, whether he's a doctor or not. And when you have people confronting people on the street, members of the press, and not respecting the social distancing guidelines and say, oh, it's okay, I take hydroxychloroquine. I mean, that's just wrong. It's dangerous.
You're right. I agree with you, and you made those two very important points in that note that conveniently came out 3 hours after what Donald Trump said, and many sources say that many in his administration were shocked, shell-shocked. They had no idea. In that note, doctor didn't say that he prescribed it to Donald Trump and never said that Donald Trump was taking the medication. But I want to move on now.
You think
I'd like to move on.
You think that Donald Trump is not actually taking this drug? You don't think that he was recommended to take this drug, and he is just telling the American public, despite the fact that it can kill them, according to a couple of studies, to take the drug because he wants to kill a bunch of Americans and lose the election?
I think we've all.
Ryan, absolutely.
People in his administration have the virus. So I do believe that he is taking this drug as a prophylactic.
I don't want to do more than 15 minutes on this.
And if he is taking the drug as a prophylactic, I believe that his personal doctor told him to take that drug.
That's actually not factually accurate.
Because he is the president of the United States.
You're obviously not listening to his press conferences.
If it's not factually accurate, then you're saying that he just took the drug because of something he heard from someone else that wasn't a doctor. I'm going to repeat this. There's no way the president of the United States would even be allowed to do that.
Okay, I'm going to repeat this one more time, and then we're going to move on because you clearly don't know what Donald Trump said in the press conference 2 days ago. What Donald Trump said was he was asked about it, and he said the doctor did not tell him to take the drug. The doctor is not the one that brought this up. It was Trump that brought it up. It wasn't the doctor that recommended he take it. That is Donald Trump's own words. What you're saying is not factually accurate. But I want to move on now because this is something that Donald Trump does on a regular basis, attacks reporters. And I want to know if J.D. can defend this, because this is Donald Trump shutting down CBS's very own Paula Reed, who asked about the plan to get people back to work. I want to know if you think this question is inappropriate, and listen to Donald Trump's response. Have a listen to this.
Mr. President, why haven't you announced a plan to get 36 million unemployed Americans back to work? You're overseeing historic economic despair. What's the delay? Where's the plan?
I think we've announced a plan. We're opening up our country. Just a rude person you are. We're opening up our country. We're opening it up very fast. The plan is that each state is opening, and it's opening up very effectively. And when you see the numbers, I think even you will be impressed, which is pretty hard to impress you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
A lot of these jobs are not coming back.
Brian,
So, Doug, what is your response to that? And then I'll ask J.D. Doug, did you think that was rude of her to ask that question?
Oh, of course not. I mean, it was a perfectly legitimate question, and all these questions that Trump's base labels as gotcha questions are the exact kind of questions our founding fathers told the press to ask.
J.D.?
That was a very short, succinct answer, Doug. I appreciate that. No, it wasn't a rude question. It was a dumb question. It was a stupid question, because Donald Trump doesn't have that authority. The governors of each state have that authority as to when they're going to open up. And the 36 million that are unemployed are spread across the 50 states in the United States.
Doug, would you agree with that assessment?
How can you not?
The president doesn't have the authority?
I mean, I've said before, this is a national crisis. It requires a national response. And Donald Trump has provided absolutely zero national leadership or guidance.
No,
he wants full authority. He wants full power. And yet when it comes down to actually exercising it, he blows it off to the governors and says, okay, it's up to you.
You know, I can tell you that
the federal government
that is not factually accurate.
To stimulate employment.
A month, and now that we're using factually accurate 55 times a show, but a month ago, Donald Trump made a statement that he is going. He made a statement that he has the all power. Every decision that is made goes through him, and a bunch of governors pushed back. Cuomo was one of them, and said, no, that's not the case. The states have their authority, and in this situation, they do have federal guidelines to open up in phases, but the governors themselves are making those decisions as to when to reopen the economy. There's nothing Donald Trump can do about that.
We're not talking about that.
No, of course you are.
No, we're not.
Yeah. How are you not talking about that? You're talking about 36 million unemployed.
Okay. We're talking about.
You get them employed by opening the economy.
We're talking about. Okay, we're not talking about reopening. That specific question was giving us a guideline or a plan for all the people that are unemployed to help get this economy going. So when we do open up, When we do open up, Mr. President, what are some of your plans to revitalize this economy? That is the question that she asked.
No, she didn't.
Yeah, that is.
No, she did not.
Doug, am I wrong on that?
She did not ask that question.
Am I misinterpreting?
You are spinning
all right, let me ask Doug.
that question.
Let me ask Doug. Doug, am I misinterpreting what she was asking?
No, not at all.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
If you like it short and succinct, there it is. No, you're not wrong at all.
I appreciate that, actually.
All right, so I want to talk to you about something that I think is another disgraceful behavior by the President of the United States. As you know, it's been a White House. Yeah, it's been a White House tradition for decades. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but for at least 40 years, a first-term president hosts a ceremony in the East Room for the unveiling of the official portrait of his immediate predecessor that will hang in the halls of the White House. So Republican presidents have done it for Democratic presidents and vice versa. They've done it for years, but President Trump and his administration have announced they will not be doing it for President Barack Obama. Doug, your thoughts on that?
I mean, the pettiness of this man knows no limits. And the ironic thing is, he is so bad that even Obama, who can get along with anybody, he doesn't want any part in it either.
Yeah, what does that tell you? J.D., your thoughts on this? This has been going on for 40 years. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, he should do it. My opinion. I think that he should do this.
Why do you think he's not doing it?
Why do I think he's not doing it? Because he thinks that Barack Obama was spying on him and then there wasn't a peaceful transfer of power. Now, until that's proven, he should do that. Now, once that's proven, then I think he has the right to take it down. But until that takes place, then he should do it.
What exactly is Obama?
Because I do believe in tradition in that regard.
Doug, why do you think he's not doing it?
Oh, the same reason his whole presidency has existed, to erase everything Barack Obama did and then replace it with something very similar, only with Trump's name on it. Trump is just horrifically embarrassed and ashamed deep down that he knows he will never be a fraction of the man Obama was, nor will he ever be admired as much as Obama is. Barack Obama isn't the most popular man in the United States. It's the most popular man in the world. Donald Trump isn't the most popular man within his own family.
That's actually true. That's a very good point there. So what do you make of this now? Obviously Donald Trump seems to be obsessed with Barack Obama. Why is it, you think, that is the case? Do you think it's more envy and jealousy that Barack Obama did not have a dad that just gave him a $400 million company? Do you think it's one of those situations where, Barack Obama didn't have a silver spoon in his mouth his entire life, that he had to work hard to get to where he was at? Maybe it's Barack Obama's looks. Maybe it's the fact that Obama has a lovely family and only one wife that he's been dedicated to, or maybe all the above. Doug, what do you think it is?
I know. What's to hate, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, when you compare the two men, there is no comparison. And he is just tremendously jealous of Obama and hates him. And I think a lot of it goes back to that correspondence dinner when Obama made jokes about Trump. I mean, he made jokes about a lot of other people, but it was Trump who took them to heart.
I agree. I could not agree with you more. Just the look on Donald Trump's face when Obama was making those jokes, that says it all. Doug, we only got about a minute to go here, so I wanted to ask you a little bit. Give me a little bit of preview. Your show on Saturday, 2 to 4 p.m. on KDWN, which I listen to every single week. What do you got going this Saturday, Doug? What are you going to be discussing?
Well, I'm not really sure, because every time I think I have my show mapped up for the week, for that week, the next day happens and I have to change it.
That's true.
That's the one thing that bothers me the most about this Trump administration. There are times that by the end of Sunday night, I say, okay, I've got enough stuff to cover this week. And then the rest of the week happens, and the stuff that was really important on Sunday and Monday is old news, and it's less than a week old.
That's a good point. It's a very valid point. Trump, the gift that keeps on giving. He's kind of like herpes. But, Doug, I will say this. No matter what you discuss on Saturday, I know you will be raising a little hell. You're always very good at that. Doug Basham, you do a great job. Glad you're a part of KDWN. Keep up the great work, my friend, and we will catch up with you next week.
Hey,
thanks a lot,
guys.
Doug.
Always appreciate it.
All right, there you go. It's Doug Basham. I love Doug. He is a character. By the way, the best hair in radio, too, by the way. I want to add that in there. Certainly, I probably have the worst. But